In today's lesson, we're going to see how we can remove noise from our clips and then add it on for creative purposes. Let's begin by learning how to denoise our videos in Premiere Pro. So sometimes you may not be careful with your camera settings and you end up bringing some noise into your clips. This happens when your ISO is way too high and you do not have the right shutter speed. So in this example, we have a lot of noise. If I zoom right in, you can see all these little dots around my subject's hand. So these little dots are called noise, and it's pretty common to have them in your videos, but there is simple fixes in post-production, so there's no need to panic. First, we're going to learn how to remove noise. Then after, we're going to learn how to add noise and grain to make a video look like it was shot on a film camera. This clip is in your resource pack. Just make a sequence from it and we can begin working with the way it looks. Duplicate your video so we can have one for reference. Then look for the denoise option in the immersive video folder. This effect is initially made for VR videos, but you can also use it for clips like this, so it's not only limited to VR. Add this onto your video, and immediately you can see the difference. This is before, this is after. Kind of softened everything out and actually ended up making the subject's hand look like watercolor drawings. So this is before, this is after. So this is kind of what we want. We want to smooth things out, but not to the point where there is no detail on our subject's hand. So go to the effect controls, head down to the VR denoise section, have the noise type set on random valued, and reduce the noise level. So by default, it should be on 0.20, but this is way too much, as you can see. So go for 0.08 or a very small number. So even with this small number, we're still getting a pretty good result. This is without denoise. This is with denoise. We can go even further and choose something less than 0.08. Let's try 5. And I think that looks better. So we got rid of the noise, but it's still looking a little grainy. So we're just gonna head over to the color workspace. And by using the Lumetri color sliders, we can kind of hide the fact that this video has some noise. Begin in the basic correction section and increase your contrast. Then we're going to lighten up those shadows and increase those highlights. So let's zoom in. And slowly we're going to hide those little dots that were all around our video. This was before, this is after. So it's a really simple color change. You can take it a step further and maybe reduce your exposure. And now I got myself a completely different footage. This was before, this is after. Take a look at this up close. This is before, this is after. So it's a really important step that you need to take in times where you shot with the wrong camera settings. Now, apart from Premiere Pro, there are some plugins that can just get rid of the noise with a single click. Most of them are paid, so usually this denoise effect is the best option. But if you saw that this is not doing it for you and you need more of a denoise effect, then you can just go ahead and get those plugins. So if you search this on Google, you're going to get this page. If you go to Video Enhance AI, one of the things that it does is that it removes the noise, as you can see. You can also upscale your video. So it is a bit pricey, but it does a really good job at removing the noise and upscaling your video from SD to HD HD to 4K or 8K. So it's powered by AI, and I would say it's totally worth the amount that you're paying. But if you don't want to spend money on these plugins, then you can just stick with the Premiere Pro denoise effect. So that was how we can remove noise. Now let's see how we can add noise for creative purposes. Let's go back to the editing workspace and take a look at our second video. I'm going to just make a new sequence. Here we have a vertical shot in black and white of this two people just having fun with their photography. So what we're going to do is to not only add noise, but to add on some overlays that can make this look like a Super 8 film camera. So let's begin by duplicating this, bringing this above, go to the effects menu and look for the noise HLS in the obsolete folder. Add this onto your clip. Go to the effect controls. It helps to zoom in onto your subject so you know how much of noise you need to add on. Just go back here to a scene where she is in focus. I'm going to use my scroll wheel until I am on the right frame. Now head down to the noise HLS on the effect controls, and we got some different noise options. The first one is uniform, which means that you're going to have pretty routine noise particles on your video. This is the default option, but there's also squared and grain. So depending on what you're looking for, you would want to choose a different noise type, work with the settings and see which one is best for your clip. I personally like grain because it gives me more of a random look, and it makes it look closer to the Film 8 camera, which by the way is a camera by Kodak that looks like this. It's a pretty popular camera and the footage looks pretty vintage, as you can see. So what we're trying to do in this lesson is to take that video and make it look pretty vintage. So the first thing we need is some noise. Let's choose the grain option, come down to the light down here and increase the light amount. The more I increase, the more of these little dots I will get on my clip. So let's go for around 10%. And now we're getting these grain on top of our clip. You can take it a step further by working with the saturation, which can add those RGB colors that is pretty common with colored clips. But because mine is black and white, there's no point in me having saturation on. But if your video had color, then I would recommend adding maybe 20 or 30% of the saturation slider. Next, we have the grain size, which is the size of these little particles. If you increase it, you're going to get something like this that doesn't look that nice. So I would just keep it at the default, which is 1. You want those tiny grains all over your subject. We also have noise phase, which is the placement of these noise around your clip. So if you want this to move, the noise to kind of move around, which could add a nice artistic flair, then you would want to go at the beginning of your timeline, toggle the animation for noise phase, go to the end, and add to the degree. You can go further and make it like do a full cycle. So this is the amount I kept, 7 times 78.1 degrees. Let's zoom out, and now we got a nice grain for our video. Maybe 20% for lightness, just because I can't really see those grains. Once I have my grain, I'm just going to add on the overlays that are also in your resource pack. And these overlays are going to make this look more like the camera that we just saw. So the first one is actually named after the camera. It's going to give you this frame, which is perfectly made for this vintage look. So grab this right above your clip, select the overlay, and use scale, rotation, and position to just make it fit for your video. Once I have this, I can now change the blending mode into darken. And this is going to give my video a vintage look to it. You can see that the frame is shaking. We got some noise and we have this pretty nice frame. I'm going to trim the end here, then put on a film damage, which is just going to make everything perfect. Again, we're going to have to scale and rotate this, and then we can just change the blending mode to screen. Play this back, and now we get these lines going across our video. If you don't want this bluish yellow tint, you can just go on your first overlay, head down to the color workspace, and just remove the saturation completely. So it's going to remove that yellow hue and leave you with a fully black and white clip. But if you want the color, you can just increase the saturation and get a more classic look to your video. You can even enhance the video itself by adding some color to the shadows, midtones, and highlights. You can give it a light red color to the shadows. As for highlights, we can choose a warm color, one that is less intense, of course. And the midtones, I think I'll just add a slight red. So now I took it away from looking black and white and gave the video a nice vintage look. It also helps to go to the creative section and increase the amount for faded film, because usually those old cameras don't have that much of a contrast. So you want to mimic that by increasing the faded film slider. In a further lesson, we're going to see how we can make a video vintage. I'm not going to get into details right now, but there's going to be a separate lesson dedicated for this video style. You can also increase the sharpen slider to again bring out the rough edges of the video and make this look more like a film. Increase that, add some vignette as well, bring it towards the left. It's going to give you these darkened edges, and you can adjust the shape by reducing the roundness. Let's adjust the midpoint and make this look more vintage. So now we're done with the effect. We saw first how to remove noise, and then secondly how to add noise to a clip. So you're going to be dealing with noise a lot in post-production, and depending on how bad the noise is, you would either use Premiere Pro's a built-in plugin or just buy a plugin from the internet. You can check out the website that I showed you earlier and find the best software that can help you with your needs. I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson, and I will see you in the next one.